Home buying 101. Okay, what type of inspections do you need? I get this question a lot. I get it from realtors and I get it from clients. And often realtors are being given bad information from lenders. Same with clients. So we have this amazing flyer now. I'm really excited about this. Like, I've been a lender for 13 years and I finally have marketing material that's like, it has value. You know what I mean? Like, I hate marketing where it's like, work with me, buy this, but this is like a good cheat sheet. I sent this out to a bunch of realtors last year. I was like, guys, put this on your wall. Like, even if I'm not the lender on the transaction, this is going to save you so much heartache. Here's why. FHA is my favorite example. So with FHA loans, a pest report is not required, okay, unless it's in the contract or the appraiser calls it out. That's the only two times you're going to need a pest report. However, there's been this misinformation campaign by lenders to make people think you need a pest report on FHA, which you do not, okay? So let's talk about pest reports first. And what happens when a lender sees your pest report, okay? So if you write up your contract and you have the pest report in there, for FHA, conventional, and USDA, I'm going to need to see a copy of that pest report. And then I'm going to ask for every Section 1 item to be completed prior to close. Yeah, for sure. And the reason is that Section 1 items are what can deteriorate a home. Wood boring beetles, dry rot, all this stuff that can make your house a risk. And since the lender, you know, and people are always like, well, I'm putting down 20%. Why do they care? We're putting down 80%. Yeah, I mean, if you're putting down 20%, the lender's doing 80%. So we totally care if there's wood boring beetles eating through the roof. Like, for sure, we care. So that's important to note. Now, if it's not on the contract and the appraiser doesn't call it out and you decide to get one on your own, great, more power to you. I don't need it. I just need it if the appraiser calls it out or if it's on the contract. So that's for FHA, conventional, and USDA. Okay. Now, VA is different. So in certain states with VA, a pest report is always required. An example is California. So on all my California VA loans, we have to have a pest report and we have to have clear Section 1 prior to close. Now, who can pay for that pest report? That also depends on the state. So it's very important with VA that you talk to the lender up front and you say, hey, for my state, do I need a pest report? Okay, let's move on to the next report. Home inspection. Yeah, we don't need it. None of the loans require a home inspection. If it's in the contract, an underwriter could call it out, but none of us require it. If you're doing a home inspection, I would just do it on your own. Radon inspection. So this is only, once again, if the contract says you're getting a radon inspection or if the appraiser calls it out. New home construction, VA is one that comes to mind, but I don't run into radon a lot. Septic inspection. So septic is only needed if the contract calls it out again. So if the contract has in it that you're getting a septic inspection, we will want a copy of it and we will want proof that the septic's in good working condition. Honestly, do you want to buy a house where it's not in good working condition? No. So if it's in the contract, if we call it out, if they can't provide proof that the septic's in good working condition, we're not going to finance the house. And the reason is you need to be able to use the bathroom. Okay, well inspection. So the only time a well inspection is required is USDA and VA. And VA is where I see people trip up a lot because we have to be able to show the water's potable, meaning that it's drinkable. And there are certain well testers that don't really work with VA, so they don't know what we're looking for. And it can be a headache. And a lot of people go, well, wait, I'll just go test it myself. Please don't. We have to have a third party. It needs to be like a legit well inspector. So I always say, hey, if someone's going out to inspect the well, they need to test the water. If this is VA, here's what we need. You know, please make sure you're working with a company that has done this for a VA loan before. And it's just because otherwise it is such a headache, such a headache. USDA, same thing. And really, the reason the lender wants this is because they want to make sure that the water is drinkable and you're not going to die from it. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Also, they're looking at the gallons per minute. They want to make sure that you have enough water where you're not taking a rain can and pouring it over your head. The stuff with well, especially if you don't buy rural property or you haven't before, is like well can be such a deal breaker for your future. You could be like, wow, this house is so cheap. I wonder why. It's probably the well, because if the well's low on water, or if the pumps are trashed, or it's in an area where the water's like dangerous, yeah, the house is going to be super cheap because you don't have a reliable source of water. There's actually some properties where the wells are so minimal that people are trucking in water, and that affects your ability to resell. So yeah, I feel like, you know, almost every loan should have it, but really it's just on VA or USDA. However, if it's in the contract, once again, we're going to want to see it. Private road maintenance agreement. Now, this is an interesting one because that's going to depend on the state. There's some states where there's like a workaround on it. But if you are on a private road, it is always a good practice to know who pays for stuff for it. Right? My house is on a private road and it's all paved. And what happens is that if something goes wrong, all the neighbors have to chip in and pay for it. You want to make sure something like that is set up, because if it's not set up, then you're going to be in a position where, like, who's going to pay for the road if something goes wrong? Right? Problem. Anyways, so overall, lenders really don't need to see your inspections. This is overall, unless you put it in the contract. If the contract states that an inspection is being done, we will be asking for a copy of that inspection and we will be reviewing it. Okay? So I urge you, if you put this stuff in the contract, you need to recognize the lender has a right to ask you to have stuff fixed prior to close. The stuff a lender asks you to have fixed is because they want to make sure the house does not end up being a foreclosure. Something like water that's undrinkable, that could totally lead to a foreclosure. You know, a pest report where wood-boring beetles, I bring up again because they're really tough to get rid of. They're everywhere. Yeah, we'd want that fixed because that can lead to a foreclosure. So it's important to know what you're getting into. If you want a copy of this sheet, let me know. Just shoot me an email at beeston@rate.com. And if you need to get pre-approved or talk about mortgages, check out all the states I'm licensed in. I'm happy to help you. Thanks for watching.